Okay, we are live. I'm not going to waste any time with introductions. I think everybody knows it's the man with the hair and the plan to my right here. So, Amit, thanks for jumping on. I think our boy Chris is going to be jumping on in a second here as well. So forget about even wasting time. This is actually like so incredible of a moment. Um, it's hard to even know where to start, but there's so many ideas in my head coming from the analytics space. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the price. I want to talk about elections. I want to talk about what the SEC might want to do here. I want to talk about a lot of people being very angry and apparently leaving Twitter any minute now. I just wrapped up my day at work and figured, you know what better way to end it than talking about some more data.
Yeah.
The breaking news for anyone who's popping on and hasn't seen it, apparently Elon did get that funding he talked about, and they're saying that they're essentially in the final stretch of negotiations to actually sell Twitter to Elon at that potential $54.20 per share, which works out to about $44 billion. But that's the math. Forget about the math for a second. I don't even know where to begin on this thing because it's so wild. But I want to tell you, I'm at the first thing that came to my mind. Have you ever seen the movie Ex Machina?
I have not.
Okay. In the movie, the founder of Blue Book, which is essentially Google, is able to basically take all of the user's information and build this ultra advanced AI mind because he can read patterns, emotions, everything from the what users are searching for and the way they're using data. And true story, a couple of years ago, not to get overly dorked out here, but like a couple of years back when I was at IBM, we were working on this platform called social media analytics. Never really gained a lot of foothold because there was a lot of access issues getting all of the data, the pure data streams from Twitter, among others. And we were doing some cool things in that space with it, understanding what the data was telling us, getting very predictive around trends, things that were happening before they got out to the broader markets. And you and I have even talked a few times around this idea of getting ahead of trends for investing by seeing things before they happen. I talk about TikTok, you talk about your way of doing it. But I just couldn't help but think to myself, he's not just buying Twitter. He's buying every historical piece of data that's ever happened on Twitter. Think about that for a second.
Wait, you mean well, because Twitter is a library of archived, documented text updates. So when you say he's buying all of that stuff, you're saying there's immense value in all of that.
Well, let's say you want to build a robot with an AI mind.
I see where you're going here.
You know where I'm going here? Like, what is the best way to leverage data to build an AI mind? And what's up to Kelly and Steve? And thanks for jumping in. Kelly, also belated happy birthday, if I think I'm correct based on the Twitter feeds.
Happy 51st, Kelly. I'm so happy.
51st, did you say? Oh, that's
yeah, she's turned 51.
All right. Well, respect. Keep up the hustle on 51 then. If you're building a robot and you need immense amounts of data that streams in real time, that picks up the mood of people, of a nation, of business, of the economy, of politics, of what people are doing and not doing, of what's being canceled, not canceled, of what's happening, right? Think about that stream of data and the value that brings to the table from the perspective of how quick that deep neural learning can happen. I mean, it's insane to think about the amount of data. It's not just, and now we're not talking about IoT data. We're not talking about machine data. We're not talking about historical transactional database data. We're talking about actual real people producing actionable pieces of data in real time that they can learn from. So this is why I'm excited. Look, yeah, of course, we want free speech is the most important thing, no matter what we talk about ever. Regardless of how anyone feels or doesn't feel or whatever. But what I want to call out is I think people aren't understanding that Elon is in the business of trying to build the next generation real AI. Yep. And the number one problem with doing this is getting consistent real-time data based on the way the human brain thinks. If you could get an algorithm to learn and understand the way Twitter data is flowing from the mind to the keyboard to your eyes, and that discovery process and the way that you interpret it and who likes it and shares it and doesn't like it, this is a collective brain that's going to be able to maybe potentially, I don't know, connect to a robot's AI to learn how people think and what their needs are.
Predicting that's the most interesting take I've heard so far, that like he is open sourcing the entire world's thoughts because if the greatest goal is to live beyond our death, which means we have to connect our brain to something so that we can connect it back to a new body 10, 20 years from now after we die. Well, you need a lot of artificial intelligence, I guess, which means you need real human thoughts and emotions. And maybe Twitter is just one small percentage
Sure.
of building that massive AI component. That's interesting. It's a very interesting take.
Well, I think if you really think about it, right? What's Twitter, the company, has a known value. Let's say it could be worth double. That's still a known value. Let's say it could be worth a third. Hold on 1 second. Oh no. There we go. Shabari, what's up? So I'll hit you quick, Shabari. I think that the value of Twitter being bought by Elon is not the value of the stock. It's not about bringing more users to the platform. I think it's about the data in real time of the way people think in an aggregated, massive brain and how it gets deployed and used to potentially build his next generation AI for his robots. That's my thesis. What do you think? See, that's it. That's all it's
He's so stunned. He doesn't know what to say.
I figured no one else was talking about this. I might as well jump on in.
It is quite the take. I mean, and I think your IBM experience obviously influences that. Like, even if it's a little bit more of a hot take, you're really thinking, what is kind of the master plan here? Because it's either he really loves free speech or he's trying to do some shit with this, right?
That's my whole thing here, right? Is I have no doubt that free speech is a big part of it. I think that Elon has a lot of. I think he's been very clear in what his feeling has been in that space as well. But what I definitely see, and again, to your point, like, because of my background working on these kind of programs, the number one challenge we have with getting true intelligence out there is access to real-time streaming data based on the human mind.
For sure. And also, by the way, I want to toss this into the mix here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Also, what's up, What's going on, man?
What's up, bro?
But yeah, I think, and one of the big reasons I thought this was definitely going to work, I think we alluded to it in one of the things we talked about before with the whole, like the marketing side of it. I mean, it's not going to be for advertising specifically, but the way that marketing catalogs their data. So you're right, there's a data part here, but it's also like organizing it and using it for something. So the way, and I'm alluding to the whole first party thing. You know what I'm talking about, Sean? Like the whole Apple deprecating third party cookies and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to play a big role. And Elon's probably seeing this and he's like, shit, these guys are not going to do anything with this data. And the company's just going to stagnate like to oblivion. So at least he might have some plans with this. Yeah, you're spot on.
Well, and it's funny too, because like, I think that's a great call out that this is what we saw with Apple and the deprecation of the data sets. Like going back to 2014, 2015, when we were trying to build, like, to give you like a really baseline model of it. And then, Chris, what's up, man?
What's up, guys?
Not much. I'll catch you up to speed here. So I have a thesis that everyone's misunderstanding this buy of Twitter completely. I think that it absolutely might be about getting more value down the road. It absolutely might be about free speech. It absolutely is about censorship. But I also think this is the first time ever a person trying to build a human-level AI intelligence has access to real-time streaming human thoughts in the form of short-form tweets. Not to be confused with Ex Machina, one of my favorite movies of all times, where he uses Blue Book, aka Google, to build an AI system based not on what people are searching for, but why they're searching, what they do when they find what they're searching for, right? So I think it's a really interesting take to get real-time emotions, real-time market reads, real-time feels about what's happening in and around things. So that's sort of where I'm at. That's sort of my thought process. I don't think it's to say he isn't trying to make money or do things on the free speech perspective and all that. I think that's a big part of it too. But I think that if I'm trying to build the next generation robot to deploy to Mars, to live in my basement and clean my house, I think I need to have access to real-time, massive, aggregated human thought. I think Twitter is almost a perfect example of a collection of all of that in real time. I just turned Shabari off completely with that thought, obviously, as he jumped off quickly.
That's interesting. I mean, I thought something similar, that there is definitely an AI play here somewhere along the lines. I just think there are some challenges that, are probably going to have to be overcome if we really want this to succeed. So like an example that I see
Chris,
right
turn up the
now,
mic a little bit, Chris.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yeah. Turn up the audio, mic volume. There you go. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, one of the problems that I think we're going to have to solve in the short term is as much as I like seeing people melt down over, something like this, in order for Twitter and most of social media to succeed, you need a broad amount of support, like from people. So you need to have a majority of the people on there. So right now, for the longest time, everyone was very critical of Twitter for being, for having censorship and kind of blocking the right wing. Now a lot of people are thinking, well, you know what? Now this is going to turn into block the left wing kind of thing. So I think one of the things that we need reassurances on is, hey, listen, this is not to
Come on,
exclude
guys.
anyone. This is just to give people more the ability to actually reach out more, right? So I think right now the messaging should be a little bit more clarified and saying, hey, listen, like I know a lot of the right wing pundits are going crazy, like what is that thing called? Like celebrating right now, like, hey, this is a victory for us. It's like, no, it's a victory for free speech. But here's the thing, like I hope that you people realize that this gives the other side the ability to talk also. This is not a right wing victory. This is an
Mhm,
everybody victory.
mhm,
Can I just add to Sean's point there real quick? I think you're onto something, man. I for like the startup stuff I did a while ago, I met this guy at a Google conference, and he was this guy who, like those AI companion situations.
mhm.
So he was working on one of those, and the big problem he had wasn't the availability of data per se. It was more so the reaction to the stuff that he'd want his bot to actually provide. Like it would be almost not human, right? Like it would be in the context, but it just wouldn't sound like somebody said it. So he was like, the data itself is not a problem, but the like when you actually curate the data and you make it into something like a reaction that a person would say, you're right. Like in terms of Twitter, people are outraged about anything. So you're getting live reactions, right? So he has that, to ability to see how Twitter handles it, potentially change it or use it for maybe a Tesla bot or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and like again, I think there's for sure a lot of other things that feed into this. And Chris, I think you're right too. And Shabari, to your point, like when we were trying to build this out, now getting close to 10 years ago, we were doing it on an exercise of how do we leverage what's being hashtagged, which, again, this is now 7, 8 years ago, so things are a bit different. But what we were trying to do is ascertain like brand awareness, tie it back to marketing and lead gen efforts, then also identify the perspective of like what are people thinking about or what's the trend before it gets there, so you could essentially have that level of data. And what I would also throw out there too is it's not about personal data. I think this is a major misunderstanding. Like no one actually cares what every individual of billions is doing. That's a major misnomer in the world of data, that it's about metadata. It's what is the directionality of the data about the data telling us. And I won't go deep in this because that's not why I want to do this call. But what I did want to call out is I bought Leaps a few months ago in Twitter for goddamn $60. And now at 54.20, they're absolutely worthless and I can do nothing with them. So I'm like, oh man,
Wow.
that's the only part that's really killing me. But yeah, I'd be curious. I'm curious to see what you guys think too, because the reaction has been actually. I just saw you tweeted a second ago. Um, you had tweeted us a minute ago, like people are losing their minds and talking about quitting and they don't want to work for Elon and all these things.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just confused on if you have a platform for putting out your opinions in real time. Like I can easily block anyone I want anytime I want. Like I'm sort of surprised by the vitriol. I never, and you know what made me call me ignorant? I never actually saw Elon as being the hero of the right. I'm actually surprised, to be totally honest with you here, that that's what he's being emerged and seen as here in this case. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's sort of I'm honestly taken aback by it a bit. That's sort of the way this is being taken, is like this horrible, terrible thing. He's going to come in and fire everybody, and he's going to immediately undo everything that's been done. And I don't think that's the case either. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, things have kind of flipped a little bit because your traditional liberals, like even Joe Rogan says it, he's the traditional liberal where they believed in free speech. But when you don't like free speech because you don't like what the other person is saying and you're shutting them down, you go from you being a liberal to being the thing that you're supposed to be against, right? So
Yes.
right now, like it's kind of weird because the Democrats and Republicans have almost made like a 180 flip on each other. Like the Democrats were known to be the party of the working people, and the Republicans were supposed to be the corporatists. And after the Trump effect, now the Republicans are all about family values and the little guy, as opposed to The Democrats, which are more corporatist supposedly now, that they're defending big tech, they're defending, big tech from doing a lot of stuff. They're part of the media. They have all this power. So it's kind of weird how the power dynamics have shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think right now people are just like, the right has always been frustrated because they just want their opinions out there. And there's been such a big liberal bias against them even being able to have a platform where they can actually voice their opinions, that now that someone is actually taking an active stand and giving them that right back, they're supporting them like there's no tomorrow. In my opinion, I don't think Elon is conservative or a Republican. I think he's just a real believer in free speech, just like Joe Rogan and Bill Maher and any of these old school like liberals and libertarians are, where they still believe in everyone's right to have an opinion. So
Yeah.
if the narrative fits with one side, then what can you say?
Well, I suppose there's a bit of a juxtapositioning that's happening too, because if banning people on Twitter wasn't a big deal and it didn't matter and didn't affect things, then the theory of unbanning them should also not be as big of a problem, right? And I think that's sort of the irony of the whole take is like, is Twitter or the people on it or the people being allowed to be on it or off it actually affecting the outcomes of anything? Now, you could argue, of course, that like, yeah, there's a lot of bots and there's advertising, et cetera, like that. But at the same time, like, to call a spade, this is a business, and it is in the business of generating revenue for shareholders. And shareholders have really been looking for something. I also have one other theory I wanted to share too here, aside from my live data stream of real time
AI consciousness.
Yeah, which I think, honestly, I really think that data is extremely valuable, even just from a build perspective. But I also wonder if this has to do with the fact that the board is aware that the earnings were going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And something real bad coming here, because the flip-flop from a poison pill and 100% not doing this to like, let's do a deal, right? Like, I wonder what we don't know as shareholders here, and that's concerning as well.
Do they still report earnings, even because like they're not public anymore?
Last I heard is they've suspended the reporting of the earnings for right now.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I don't think earnings matters anyway, because
it doesn't, but I'm so interested. How bad was it?
The reason why I say that is because, like, even if Elon was literally buying this to be like as an investment, like a real money investment, Twitter makes no sense whatsoever from a multiple end, especially what he's paying for it. There's a little bit of there's definitely idealism behind this purchase and this acquisition, right? And so I think Elon's got to the point where he's got enough, lack for a better word, fuck you money, to the point where he can actually dictate terms to a lot of companies. And I think this is like making a stand on something. But like I said, even if they had if I was Elon, I probably would have waited for a shitty report to come across, in which case then I would have bought more shares, and I would have just kept adding to my shares. I wouldn't have gone and made a tender offer and overpaid, because Twitter hasn't been able to monetize and be really valued to what it's supposed to be for a long time. All you needed to do is just have patience and let Twitter, stock come down, buy a little bit more. Let Twitter come down, buy a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I think there's a bit though of like almost inconsequentiality here of once he made the decision that he wanted to do something here, there was just as likely a chance that this thing could go up much more. Like, if you look at the 1 year chart on this, it was up quite a bit more. So I think that the basis for a lot of people who are screaming that like this is the wrong move and it shouldn't happen is again, I can't believe I'm use this word twice in one day, but another juxtaposition to those who are saying like maybe this thing was really going to go down way worse too. And I think Chris, we talked about this the other day, and in fact, I think a bunch of us did the other day, about this idea that their ad model is terrible and they're in the business of making money. I was even thinking about it today. I'm suddenly getting served this one ad over and over and over again. I will never click it. It has nothing to do with anything I would ever want to see or be interested in. And I was just thinking, like, what an absurdity that this company's paying for it. And I work a lot with social media companies, and what I do around ad sales and how they understand the data that flows behind it, not necessarily even in the realm of like increasing revenue, but just understanding like relevancy and conversion rates and how to get better around that from a learning perspective. But
this person sent me a link to this store that's rooted in like anime costumes or whatever.
yeah,
And then for the next 5 days, Twitter kept showing me like anime people on ads and like this new anime video game they wanted me. I'm like, bro, I do not care about anime like at all.
yeah. Well, it's like it learns too quick, right?
Yeah.
Like one time you got a link, so now forever you have to keep getting the same ads for the same things, you know?
Yeah.
Actually,
go ahead.
No, just a funny story in that I have a buddy who was like explaining that he gets ads for like lingerie companies all the time, and his wife found it on his phone. And he was like, "Oh, I don't know why I get that," and everyone's like, "We know why you get that," you know. But yeah, anyways, you're gonna say,
does Trump come back?
Dude, great question. You know what, Shabari, we talked about something similar on our Dad Bod podcast. What do you think on Trump? Is he coming back or what? Are you still there? I know you're. I think you're.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, man. I don't want the car noise to disturb your talks. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I felt like he was coming back for sure, but it seems like a lot of people are going after, DeSantis coming back. I've been kind of, looking at some of the stuff he said. I know through COVID, like there was, the liberals are really putting a big target on him, but he seems to be a guy with some like a solid head on his shoulders, right? So I feel like he might be the candidate, but if Trump runs, those two are going to be like, I feel like the party should not go with Trump in this case. I mean, just because I think it's more the same story, right? Like I don't think like the people voted against Trump this past time. So what makes you think they're going to go against him or for him this time?
All right, well,
I mean, sure, Biden is what he is, but I don't know. I don't put a lot of money into people flipping again to that like a landslide amount to Trump.
Well, think of it for a second, not as a flip from right to left, but if Trump comes back on platform, does he now win an election? Versus if he doesn't get back on, does someone else run and take the lead as a Republican candidate?
I think it would be close, but I think he'd still lose, to be very honest.
To be fair, I think DeSantis is very pragmatic. I don't think he would run if Trump was putting his hat in. I think he would just wait until 2028. He's got time on his hands. Like one of the things that you have to remember is you have to look at the age of the candidate involved. DeSantis is in not any hurry to like, I need to run and be president, or otherwise I have nothing better to do. Like he's got time. Like he's got the state.
Yeah, but does the party have time though? Right? The party is like, who else is there other than those two guys?
Well, I think there are definitely candidates on the right that would want to run, but I don't think anyone would want to run against Trump because even if they end up losing, Trump is kind of like a renegade in that he will take you down with him. Like literally with other candidates, that at least they'll be respectful and they won't go after you personally. I mean, look at what he did to his other candidates when he was going, against them. Like, dude, he took down all of his opponents like pretty.
But do you think Elon lets him back? Like,
yeah,
that's
of
my
course.
question.
Yeah,
you think it happens?
Yeah, Trump is the best entertainment. Like, dude, if you want to grow Twitter, you need Trump on there. Even liberals will stay on Twitter just so that they can,
he's great for business. He's great for business.
If there is a person that people like, I still remember I used to wake up in the morning and look at my phone, not to see if I got messages from my family, but to see if Trump tweeted anything, just because some of it was so hilarious, So that's what I would say. I'd say bring back Trump, man. He was 24 hours entertainment, and you never know. Elon has taken Trump's position as the chief entertainment officer of Twitter.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is he coming back or not?
I think he's coming back. I heard reports that the policies have not changed, but I mean, things are very early, so things can change.
Yeah.
But I guess this goes into a broader question of like content. Like one of the most perplexing things about this is like, why the hell is Elon worried about this? He's trying to be the most influential person in the history of humanity. And like free speech, yes, important. I don't undermine that. But content moderation is rough. And like when someone says a certain word in a certain context that is objectively bad, but it's not objective to a certain population. Like, what is Elon's new board of directors? Like, how do you think they deal with content moderation going forward?
I was thinking about the same thing, but a slightly different angle, but still in the same course of action here is this is an interesting play too because of the SEC. Now, It's very, very easy to say the SEC has really no part in this because it's literally becoming a non-publicly traded company. So why would the SEC be involved? But then I wonder, is this like a loophole, or will we see Biden's administration potentially try to look at like FCC rules here, or some sort of like content rule, or some other play here to say like, look, this creates a lack of competition now for other publicly traded social media companies. I think there's a lot of things the SEC can do here to become a real big thorn in Elon's side. And I also wonder, and this is going to be an unpopular take, I think, for people who watch this later, is maybe Elon knows all the headwinds that are in front of him to stop this from happening. And that's why it was worthwhile to make a bid and really put it out there. I mean, and even Twitter's board, like I don't guarantee, but I expect to see there's going to be all kinds of breakup clauses. There's going to be lots of things out here that basically say like they can shop the deal, they can look for better terms, they can make this thing drag out for years, and maybe that's the best case scenario. Maybe this takes them all the way through and past the next election. Who's to say?
Yeah.
I mean, those would be negotiated terms, but I think it's going to be an interesting take on it. And
like,
you're right.
How do you think he deals when people say bad stuff that has to get censored? Like, how do you like? Does he just leave it there? Like,
I don't think you can. I think whether you're publicly traded or not, the blurred lines between private sector companies and public sector responsibilities for celebrity CEOs is a big deal nowadays. And this is a funny thing I was thinking about too. There are some companies, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really do feel this way. I think that in 2022 and beyond, there are some companies that require celebrity CEOs. I think you need
What?
yeah, I really do. And well, I mean, celebrity in a sense of like, a Jack Dorsey or a Musk or whatever. And I know everyone can like them for different reasons, but I think there are some companies that are defined by the personalities that run them. And those personalities require, especially in terms of content moderation, not censorship though, but moderation as far as maybe even warnings that something might be something to be considered. And I don't think you have to cross the free speech line. But it can't be a free for all of pure hate and threats and violence. It just can't be, or else it's going to get shut down anyways by some other source. The FCC walks in and says, "Look, whether you like it or not, you're a communications company. We have control over that." I know that's a blurry line, but it wouldn't take much for an executive action to make that the case. What I also wonder though is, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say right now, there's a lot of companies that are probably going to be scrambling whether or not it's on Twitter. I mean, when you think about it, there's probably going to be some backlash against some of the laws and regulations protecting social media that have been around. And then now, I think a lot of these liberal advocates, they're going to start targeting companies that have a presence on Twitter, saying, "Why are you on Twitter?"
That's true.
Like it's going to be, like I said, it's how the left ends up painting Twitter that's going to significant in terms of like how the war continues, because if this is a war of ideologies, now if you are able to successfully, like if the left, and especially a lot of the power base on the left, still has significant holdings in media, right? If they're able to somehow label Twitter as like the right-wing platform, and that anyone associated to it, especially brands associated to it, like let's say you're Nike, will Nike close their Twitter account? You never know. Will Facebook close their Twitter account? Will all these other corporations close their Twitter accounts because they're like, oh yeah, you're supporting a right wing fascist like Elon Musk, which I'm sure that they're going to paint him as. Like literally, it's
No way,
already all
man.
over Twitter. So
No way, Chris.
I mean, dude, yeah. Go
No,
ahead.
like I'm with you on that. And you know what's funny? There's definitely gonna be people like, oh, I can't believe, like this is the same shit that happened to Facebook, right? Facebook did some dumb shit, and then people started going off of Facebook and stuff, but they never reported when they got back onto Facebook. These companies are just down for the bottom line at the end of the day, right? So if they leave, it's just a matter of time till they come back. I mean, we're talking about companies, so it's like it matters to them. They'll be back.
One of the things that I would suggest to Elon Musk. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
No, Chris, I was going to say he's probably watching.
Yeah.
So you might as well let him know what you think.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that should definitely happen, hopefully Elon Musk is smart enough to this, is make Mr. Beast a board of directors. If you want someone who literally is in the know
Yeah.
with regards to social media, it's guys like Mr. Beast. You want people on your platform, and also not just on your platform, but in your management that's going to guide your organization to the right place. So an example is Mr. Beast has probably the attention of everyone in his age demographic from probably 14 all the way to 35 and maybe even beyond 35. But having Mr. Beast on your board of directors is going to be, it would be huge. And I hope Elon does it. That's one of the things I would be advocating for.
That is such an interesting take. I'm going to pivot in a second to the conversation about Tesla, but I also want to just double down on what you said there, because I think there's a parallel here to what you're doing, right? You're going through a process of working through a startup and growing and building capital to get that off the ground, and you are in a lot of ways very much the vocal, visible face of both that company and of yourself, right? I would dare say I want to make sure your head still fits on the screen, but you fit the profile of like the celebrity CEO and who's scaling up to it, right? Like you have a name that goes beyond just your company, but also to yourself and what you do. And I think, Chris, to your point, like, this is where I think a lot of folks who maybe don't quite understand where fiduciary responsibility of a public board plays in versus a private board helping a company to grow and make decisions is once this thing comes off the public markets, he is absolutely free, within the realm of legality, to put anyone he wants on that board to help them grow it and expand it. And I think about what God, I didn't even, this is why I'm glad we're doing this. That's such a great call out of, where do you get those people who can really drive it and get the partnerships that would have been hard to do otherwise because you have to deal with shareholder fallout. Not anything about censorship or Trump or left or right, but about like, what do you need to do to fix what's broken, which is engaging ads that are tough to watch. I started using Twitter just a short period of time ago, and I'll tell you, one of the things that has blown me absolutely out of the water is how many times I'm watching an ad but don't even know I'm watching it. It happens to me every day now. They're getting better and better. They're within the stream of what I'm looking at anyways. And even though they may not necessarily fit me specifically or be tightly aligned because I think they don't have any idea who I am yet, they're so in the flow of feeling like a natural thing. Like, I want an ad that, Josh, I'll talk about that in a second. I think the problem with a Twitter ad is I know I'm looking at an ad. That's the whole problem,
All right.
right?
No one wants to be sold to. That's
I don't want to see a big banner, and I know it's for disclosure's sake. I get that, but if I search for a baseball bat on Google for my son, and I see a bunch of ads for different brands, well, I'm okay with that. I'm searching for a baseball bat. Those are well-known brands. If there's a coupon, maybe I want to buy it. On Twitter, I'm scrolling to see what's going on with the people I work with or follow, or the events or the tags. It's sort of very frustrating to think that, like, what tags I follow, but you're still advertising with things I don't care about. Like, I've already told you what I'm interested in, and you still aren't getting it right. So to your point about the Mr. Beast approach to, like, not just content creation and curation, but also the ability to draw attention from people who don't even know why they're clicking on it. Like, I mean, I've personally watched his thumbnail videos where you're like, oh my God, like, that some small tiny thing he does and draws in a million more views, or like hundreds of millions.
Mr. Beast will probably have 1 billion subscribers on YouTube one day. Like, it's almost inevitable. I mean, he's at almost 100 million. So it's like having that person give strategic guidance on a social network. It doesn't matter if it's not video based. Like, he knows a lot more than most people, and he can give really good guidance. But he couldn't do that on a public company. That's not possible.
Agreed. And just to address the question on the options from Josh real quick. Josh, great question. We'll throw it up real quick here for those who don't understand it, because I think a lot of people don't, is in the realm of mergers and acquisitions, which both have to do with going public and being taken private, is what's called merger and acquisition arbitrage. This is when you find a risk-free way to create profit within a trade. In this case, theoretically, if we know for a fact that the price is going to be $54.20, and I can get in any single dollar amount less than that, that's an arbitrage opportunity, because when he buys my shares down the road, which is in theory what's going to happen, and I get $54.20 per, that's a guaranteed profit. The problem with those options is that there's premiums to consider, and so that although they may not be at 54, those premiums may take it to 54. So that's something to be aware of if you're an options trader looking for an arbitrage opportunity. I don't want to go too deep into that, but that's why you're seeing a differential on price you have to include the premium and the cost of those contracts as well. Just something to consider.
Jack Dorsey's getting $978 million, and Parag Agrawal is getting $39 million as a result of this deal.
How does it make you feel, Amit?
Well, I mean, it's cool, but I mean, like, I think I feel so bad for Parag, to be honest, because it's like he wanted to like be the CEO of a public giant tech company and make changes. He got 6 months, and now he's walking away with 40 million. And if he actually executed his vision, I mean, he would get billions if Twitter became what we think Twitter can become. He's getting 40 million, and 20 million is going to the government on taxes. So it's like,
that's his fault. That's his fault. Let me.
But he only has 6 months. It is not his fault.
No. He had how many years has he been with Twitter? How many shares?
He was not the CEO of Twitter.
Yeah, but how many shares did he get in his compensation plan that he sold that he didn't buy more shares of? Anyone who's been at the company for that long, if you don't believe, dude, he is one of the key members when it even went public. He could have, instead of paying for other things, bought more Twitter shares.
100%.
Dude, the fact that the CEO had less, like the new CEO had less than 0.01% is egregious. Yeah. It's literally egregious. So
that's
you know
fair.
what? You get what you invested in. I'm sorry, Agarwal. You know, you may have been the CEO for 6 months, but no one stopped you for the last 12 years from buying shares into Twitter when you're exercising your options. Instead of selling them, you could have just kept them. So, boo-hoo, you made a bad business decision. Congratulations.
You know what the great irony of this is? Shabari and I have covered this on like 3 of our episodes. You hear like Elizabeth Warren going off on Elon about the shares and the taxes and the options. You never hear it about someone who doesn't invest back in their own company.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It goes back to the premise of those who tend to be the wealthiest and perceived don't pay their fair share. It's because they keep their money in the company's shares. Like in Elon is a perfect example, right? And I think that to your point exactly, Chris, like, you know, he now could have been, forget about 40 million. He could be making 400 million if he had been acquiring those shares and holding them this whole time. Now, granted, he could have bought them at a much higher price too, to be fair. But I'm sure that option strike price was insanely beneficial to him as an executive. And to your point also, I've seen this all over Twitter today. Like, you know, he didn't even have a chance to do what he wanted to do. Like, he's a senior executive at this company for a long period of time. And let's be fair, Jack has not exactly been in charge over there. He's been running Square or /Block.
Hold on though. Before we move on though, I wanna come to Amit's defense a little bit. I don't feel bad for Parag at all. Like at all. I think he's kind of a shitty CEO and probably not that great of an executive. But all the same, I think Dorsey should share some of this blame. I know there's a whole rhetoric about how Dorsey likes free speech. The freaking guy was there in Twitter for so long, probably the same amount, probably more than Parag. So why the hell did it come to where it is now? I'm sorry. I mean, sure, you could be running Square, but that's not a goddamn excuse. Like, if you're trying to make money for your shareholders, you can be whatever you want, right? But I don't want this whole story to be like, oh, Jack Dorsey was a savior, but now he's gone. And now just over a span of 6 months, Twitter's gone to hell. That's not true at all. Like, Jack could have done a whole bunch of stuff when he was there to make it not what it is now. And we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. So maybe not all the blame, but I think some of it has to go to Jack.
Well, I mean, if you boil it down, right, to the business of running a business, their revenue model does not seem to work right. Like, for me, full stop as an investor. Forget about bans and censorship and left versus right and everything else. At the end of the day, their business model is getting people to click on and view ads and take action on them. And everyone else is doing it better. TikTok has a great way of doing it. Facebook is crushed. I mean, how many times has Mark Zuckerberg gone in front of Congress and been eviscerated? The next quarter, they blow the numbers out of the water again.
The other thing, though, is Jack hates Twitter. I mean, he's tweeted about this over the past. He hates the fact that it's a centralized corporation owning the means of production, I guess you can say, or the supply and demand of. I mean, he hates it. That's why he started Blue Sky. Blue Sky's gone nowhere because, I mean, they're not going to make any money off that. It's just like the side project. But I think for the past 2 years, he's like hated making money off of Twitter in the way that they're doing it. That's why he's all in on Bitcoin. So when you've got someone who's that mentally aligned in a different dogmatic viewpoint for whatever reason they are, there's not going to be business success there. I mean, you've got to have someone who's cutthroat like Zucks, who's like, we're selling ads and I don't care how we do it, but we're going to increase the average revenue per user everywhere in the world. Yeah. In India, people will have ads. Like,
it's a great point. You know, I've done a lot of ad buying on Facebook over the years for different things. And the value is absolutely there. I mean, depending on where you want your ads to be, you're going to pay a slightly different price. But the reality is, you are going to get people to follow your brand, to watch your brand, to interact with your brand. It's not even a question. I've done it myself. I know for a fact it works.
And that's because the company is philosophically aligned to execute that mission. Like
they're philosophically aligned to be a business with their advertisers to help them sell, right? And I think that somewhere along the lines, if you're an advertiser and you're looking at Twitter and you're like, gee, 1 minute I'm advertising trying to grow my little startup, and the next minute I'm being told like, how dare you have an ad on a feed that shows views I don't agree with. And it's like that fickle audience who also, by the way, probably isn't buying your product anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like you're getting then the bad end of both sticks on it. Just this create stress or a problem for Tesla?
Chris, you can take that one. Or Shabari, you can take that one.
Yeah.
No, I think Tesla's too far gone. They're like, apart from having a strong retail base, I think Tesla is almost untouchable from a company perspective. I don't know from a stock, but like definitely from a company perspective, it's going to be hard to touch that. Now, Elon might though. Like Elon personally might get a lot of backlash from if this deal does go through. I think so, but Tesla is just on a roll, man. Like they're opening up 2 new factories. Like delivery is going to go through. They delivered a massive Q1. It's like, so I think that the company itself is probably shielded from this a little bit. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now, and if you're still thinking Tesla is just a car company, dude, I'd really look into Tesla a little bit more. They're more of a conglomerate now than ever before. They're an energy storage company. They're a renewable energy provider company. They're an insurance company. They're a car company. They're an AI company. They're a software company. They're every sort of technology that you can think about in terms of conglomeration is Tesla. So now their valuation starts to make sense, right? When you say, hey, as an individual, as a car company, does it make sense? No, of course not. But you have to take the sum of all parts to really get and understand. Right now, if you were to chop up Tesla into different divisions, right? Like how much is the charging infrastructure that currently Tesla owns 100% of? How much is that worth? Billions, right? Yep. How much is their IP in cars? How much is that worth? Billions. How much is the solar business that they're still growing? How much is that worth? Billions. So it just goes to show you there's so many verticals there. So I think people need to stop thinking of Tesla as a car company, even though that's their flagship product. They're a conglomerate that's diversified into a lot of other things. And here's the thing about Elon, and this is where I think he's brilliant and a genius. He realized that, there's other parts of what I'm doing that I need to get right in order to successfully grow. So I'm not going to stagnate and just keep re-innovating the next Model 3 and the next Model Y. He's like, no, I'm also going to target the truck sector. Like right now, how many companies right now in the automotive space also do large-scale utility trucks, like intercontinental trucking? Not many, if any.
Yeah.
So right there, that goes... How many are saying, oh, yeah, we're also going to create a Tesla bot where we're actually going to have that? How many are saying we're going to do autonomous taxis? Nobody. So when you think about it, this is just a conglomeration of so many things. So I think the value proposition of Tesla right now makes sense as a $1 trillion company. Yeah.
Chris, your point is spot on. I was making a slightly different point, but I want to feed off what you just said there. They reverse engineered Google in a sense because Google started with the platform for search and have built it into many other types of businesses, including actual hard things, devices, manufacturing, etc. Elon started with the hardest thing, the manufacturing, went horizontal and then went vertical and then went completely web focused, right? Touching everything like a spider web, not web online. And it's actually fascinating to see how with every acquisition, purchase, build, new company, it just adds even more value to the underlying companies he started with, right? This is more data. This is more advertising. This is more putting your name out there, which the name Elon is absolutely the same as Tesla. And it's suddenly become the same as Twitter. Like Google was about getting the data and building off the data. This is now about building the products get better with the data that's being acquired from all these things. To your point, the question I was more asking, and I'm actually really glad we didn't answer it right away. The question I'm more asking is as I understand the structuring of the deal, Elon has a large amount of his own net worth or margin tied to his net worth to getting this deal done. So my question was more from the standpoint of could this affect Tesla from the standpoint of putting his shares and control at risk? No, I don't think it does, but I'd be curious what you guys have for a take here on it.
No, I think Elon's just gonna take Twitter private, develop it up, grow revenues, and then put it public again. Share, and when he sells it public, the money that he gets from taking it public, he ends up using to pay off any of the Tesla margin that
You
he
think he'll take
has.
it public again?
Oh hell yeah,
Oh, this is the
definitely.
play, 100%. Yeah.
This is definitely the play.
Yeah.
The question is, you want to grow it to the point where people believe in it more. Right now, the reason why he had to take it private was that he could not make the changes effectively that he wanted to in the current form that it is. So right now, there'd be way too much regulations around it. You'd have to deal with the SEC, with bunch of board members from other private investors always like kind of mucking up your decisions. As a private company, you get to be nimble. You get to make decisions. You get to be very methodical in the way that you're transforming your business. Once you transform it and it's generating $4 or $5 billion of free cash flow, public that crap again, and and then by that time it'll be $100 billion, maybe even a $200 billion company. And by that time, you 4x'd your investment. You get out of it in 5 years at 4x the valuation of what you've put in, right?
Yeah.
So if Elon is margining stuff, literally he's margining something that he's probably going to be paying very little interest on, right? He's using that money to 4x his money in Twitter. So in 4.5, 5 years, by that time, number one, Tesla had probably grown to a point where the level of margin is going to be insignificant to Elon. And then when he takes Twitter public again and has a much higher valuation, at that time, whatever he sells, he can just pay off his margin loans if he wants to pay off his margin loans. I mean,
here's a kind of curveball. I don't know what you guys think about this, but Elon's been tweeting about this stuff from like a while ago. Not the acquisition part, but just generally all the stuff. If you put the breadcrumbs together, you're gonna get this loaf of bread, right? Like the last time he did a chat with Kathy Wood and Jack Dorsey, he was asking about advertisers and like, why would you be open to, I don't know, using crypto as a currency for advertisers?
Dogecoin, bro.
Doge to the moon, right?
Yeah.
So we can still talk about it, but like the point I was trying to make is another thing Elon talked about, and this is really, really big in the Tesla community, which is the holding company X.com, right? Or not X.com, but X holding company. And it could possibly be that he's going to take it private, but he's going to maybe acquire a few other things and have a group of people, not just himself, as the proprietary person for X, and that company could go public. So in a way, you could own part of Twitter, but it won't be directly on Twitter. It'll be some other stuff too. Because this holding company thing seems to be something that he really wants to do, just based on his tweets. But the Tesla community went it almost went with a full bifurcation because they were like, oh, if you do that, it's going to kill the share price and all this other stuff. But if Twitter is the crown jewel after it's been taken private, that could be a different story, right? So I don't know. Well, I don't know what you guys think about that. But
I think the opportunity to create value for new shareholders in a couple of years here in a myriad of ways that we can't even think about yet is phenomenal and stunning here. I think that at its purest PE, private equity motion right off the bat, there must be so much bloated cost inside of Twitter that no one is even aware of. I can't even imagine. Forget about a shave. You could do a clean cut. And let me be the first to say, I hate the idea of layoffs. I never want to see layoffs. But maybe it's about getting people to focus on new things, new projects, new areas of focus that they're not focusing on today. I mean, I agree. I think that forget about just I think the play here is so much more than making ads better. You have a massive mega platform of global thought in real time.
Yep.
If all you're trying to do is throw an ad on that, that's a huge miss. And the truth is, it takes an absolute genius like a Musk, maybe. And I'm not even a fan. I'm not a fanboy, but the guy does amazing things in places where, look, cars can't be profitable. He made them profitable. Electric cars will never be popular. He made them popular. They can't be cool looking. No, they're kind of cool looking, right? And everything he does and works through sort of aligns to the same motion. I don't know. Chris, any thoughts on what Shabar was just talking about there? And then I definitely want to talk about Doge just to do full circle for my AI start.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'm imagine if he charges you 0.000001 Doge to tweet or something, and 1,000 tweets is literally 10 cents. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I use Twitter every day. I'm gonna pay the 10 cents. I know a lot of other people that would. Maybe that's reoccurring revenue. Literally every day, if Twitter's generating, I don't know, 6.5 billion tweets a day, Sean, you can admit you're Elon. Yeah, you're a fanboy. You got to admit it.
I guess it's happened. I don't know how or when, but I think the more I've talked about it, the more I've realized, like, you know what? I'm not a fan of talking no action. I'm a fan of like, show me what you're going to do and make it happen.
Get shit done. Get it done.
Right. Chris, what do you got here?
So this is one of the things that really should make people a little bit worried, right? When it comes to Twitter. I mean, not worried, but now actually optimistic. When you look at all of these companies, look at the total revenue that's being generated per employee. And this is from 2020, right? 2021, I have to look into a little bit further. But if you think about the complicated nature of some of these other companies that they have to do and some of the business, probably the engineering talent that you need to get things done, you're telling me Apple engineers have significant more talent? Yes, of course. But Twitter right now is actually losing money per employee compared to everyone else who seems to be growing at a pretty healthy pace, right? So I think right there, in terms of innovation, Twitter has not really been innovating over the last 5 to 7 years, yet this number seems to be staying either stagnant or decreasing slightly. It should be exponentially growing on an employee basis, because if you think about it, what does a Twitter employee right now in terms of coding have to really do? Like, I don't understand. Like, maybe someone from the coding space can explain to me, like, what the back end code of Twitter really is that you need 7,000 to 8,000 employees managing it, compared to someone like a Microsoft, you definitely need a ton of people managing that code, especially in its cloud division and everything else. Twitter is it's a message board. I hate to say this, but it's a simplified message board. Do you really need 7,000 to 8,000 people managing it?
I agree. This is going back some time, but in my previous world at IBM, like, we were always focused on that metric, like employee per head count, because it was such a massive company. So of course we really want to see the levering effect of every employee is driving huge revenue on average. And to your point, and like, even when you look at like the Facebook, the Alphabet, some of the other like more competitive names to Twitter, they would be even higher, but a lot of that is spent in R&D and the heavy focus on generating new profits as well. Oh, Christian, great point. Actually, I didn't even think about that. Actually, take a look at that. Twitter probably does have a ton of resources tied to this, and I do wonder where AI can take some of the burden off this. And for a lot of people say, like, the problem with AI, and I'll be the first to tell you, I'm happy to talk about it at length. Like, there is an entire concept of ethical AI. It's been around for a long time. You can easily extract and remove anything that could be based on identifiers or attributes that could be considered directional in ethics or morality. So it's very easy to work with that too. And I know that everyone on Twitter knows that, and I know that everyone on this call knows that. But if you're listening, you're thinking like, well, what if the person who wrote the AI has bias built in? That's why we have ethical AI in the modern world, to deal with those biases, to call them out, identify them, and remove them from final analysis. So there's even complete things out there now that are doing that. I got to talk about Doge. I have to do it because
unfortunately I got to dip. Sean.
Yeah, go for it, man. I appreciate you jumping on, man, as always. Thank you.
See you guys later. I will catch your Doge thoughts when I come back home. Peace.
See you later, man.
Thanks.
See ya.
And Christian, I agree. What I'm saying is the problem is no one has access to. I'll share it up here real quick. For sure, the AI piece has to work as a filter, and then at some point, people have to take over from where we are today. So I'm not saying it's a fix-all or a simple solution. I'm just more or less saying that, like, if you think about the bloat in users, why is Facebook doing it with less than Twitter, for example? That's really all I'm getting at. So just, Amit mentioned this on, what if I paid a certain amount of Doge for every tweet or something like that? But what if you reverse that completely? And instead of saying, I want to drive a huge amount to this platform, what if we flip the switch completely and said, look, your tweets are worth something to me? What if I got a teeny tiny piece of Doge? I know this is silly, but like, I got a teeny tiny piece of Doge every tweet or something, or I can, find a way to monetize my tweets or my channel in a different way. And I'm using Doge as a funny example because I'm going full blown from Ex Machina and building an AI to leveraging, what was designed to be a silly crypto. But, the guy's been into Doge. He tweets about it all the time. This is an easy way to bring that onto the platform. It's an easy way to also create some decentralization around the revenue and cost and model there. And look, I mean, I don't know if this is a real opportunity. I'm going to be totally clear here before I say it out loud. This is absolutely 100% not financial advice. But as I'm sitting here, I'm saying to myself, do I throw a couple bucks and get some Doge on Robinhood or something, just for the sake of having it? I mean, why the heck not, right? I don't know what you guys think about that, but like, I don't know. I mean, is that not the next shoe to drop potentially?
Oh shit, Sean, you know what you just, oh dude, you know what you just might have said? So instead of getting paid per tweet, right? What if they did something like getting paid per like or retweet or
I
something?
was thinking the same thing. Like, if you
Dude,
get a certain threshold,
Elon, get us on the board, bro. Elon, if you're watching,
I'm available.
get get
Yeah, screw
us all.
screw Mr. Beast. Get
Yeah.
Mr. Chris and Mr.
Yeah.
Shibari and Mr. Sean.
I promise we'll only talk about Twitter and not Palantir, right? No, but yeah, that might be a good idea.
That.
Yeah, we're just promoting all the Palantir tweets and stuff.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's a great idea. Like, I think it's a great idea because it's like, you know, people nowadays already are ready to go tweet and stuff. But if they see that there's some kind of incentive, they might actually want to build better content, something like what a YouTube is, for example, right? They might actually want to do it on like for the sake of their own benefit. You know, it could turn into something like YouTube where it's different kind of content, but people are taking it seriously. People actually edit their tweets instead of being dumb like me and just like putting it out there with spelling mistakes. You know, it could be something like that. It's good. That's true. Good point.
Well, here's an idea around content moderation. What if they had like a thing where you can click on something that's like improper. Let's say it's a spam bot. You click on it, you know, the algorithm detects that yes, it is a spam bot. Boom, you get, I don't know, a couple of Doge, like not a couple of Doge,
whatever.
maybe a
Yeah,
Doge.
some kind of reward.
Right, you get some kind of reward for it, right? And literally your job is just to flag it. Now, of course, you'd have to be very smart because then if it was me, I'd just create bots and flag them at the same time and keep getting paid, right? Like I'm smart enough to do that, but you'd have to figure out that there's a person doing this, you know. So that I think right now you should have a reward system where if you're flagging messed up content, you get paid for it, you know. And so now your content moderation costs get like literally thrown out because now you can do it, and now you're not paying people a full salary to do it. You can have people on the fly doing it for you.
Do you guys use Waze?
Yeah, I use Waze.
I did, yeah.
So one of the things with Waze, whenever I just went on vacation a week ago, so I had to drive a couple of hours. RK, I was gonna talk about this in a second. You beat me to a point I was gonna make, but one of the best things about Waze is the network effects of letting me know that there is a speed trap or a police officer or a car accident or something in the road or a detour, right? And for no encouragement at all, I always will say like still there or not there, right? Because it's on my little dash on my truck. So I'm happy to do it. It takes no time, and I contribute back to the community by doing that. And I think by combining that kind of emotion with also some sort of a reward, a loyalty program as well, I think Twitter lacks one thing to me that has always been missing. You know what? I should be charging Elon for all this goddamn ideas we're coming up with on this call. But like one thing they've always been missing for me personally is a little bit of gamification that can really get engaged users to be even more engaged. Now, I don't mean in a silly way necessarily, but gamification in terms of like levels of Twitter users. You can have like fun little things on there. I'm not even trying to be silly. I know it sounds like I am, but I think there's a lot that they can do from a standpoint of how they engage with their user base in different ways is going to be really interesting. But as RK just said on the screen here, just pay for collecting the data. I think that there can certainly be options for like, please don't collect my data. But I guess, and to be fair, what data do they have about you really on there? You know, you're not, when I sign up for Twitter, I'm not giving them much information really. It's more like correlation based, really, age and location and maybe a name, but not too much other than that. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. I think you touched on an important point. The whole like gamification thing. By either not doing that, I think YouTube is a little bit struggling with that too. But
yeah,
you know, YouTube is a beast. But the thing is, by doing that, I mean, we got to remember this is a social media company, right? They're going the way of Facebook by not doing that, which is I think currently happening. Which is one of the reasons Elon's probably like, what the hell? By that I mean they're missing an entire generation. I know because I have two younger brothers, like way younger. Like one of them is 19, the other one is like 13, and none of them are on Twitter. And they don't care about Twitter. They don't want to be on Twitter. They think it's like a like a boomer social media, just like Facebook or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they don't want to be on it. I mean, they don't do dances on TikTok, but they're definitely TikTok users like heavily. TikTok and Instagram, like it's basically those two. That's predominantly they're capturing their eyeballs. So if Twitter did that, they would bring some of those folks on. I don't think all of them, but they'll bring some of the newer generation, Gen Zs or whoever, on board for sure.
I'll wrap because we just hit an hour, but I want to call it out that Christian's point about making the algo making the algo public. You know what I think the problem with a lot of these things is that transparency is great if there's an understanding of what you're seeing. If you see an algorithm and you don't know what it means, you're going to be very susceptible to be told what it means and then interpret it the same problem we have already, which is like, oh, look, here's the one piece of this 5,000 line code algorithm that says, oh, it should always be right or left or up or down or blue or red or whatever. So I think there's a lot to be said here for how to make things more transparent, more entertaining, more engaging, more profitable, less bloat. I think there's a lot of fun things we can talk about. I think there's a lot of cool ideas that are going to come out. I think we've already made it clear. Several of us are available for the board, so just let us know. But yeah, anyways, I didn't even think this was going to go for an hour. So guys, I really appreciate you jumping on and sharing some thoughts today. Shibari, I'll ask you first. Any last thoughts here about Elon buying Twitter?
No, man, I think it's a good thing. Sell it to him. At this point, it's not going to get any worse. I think Twitter's, no offense to anyone who's a Twitter user, including myself, but I think it's a total garbage can of a social media. I don't think it's at a state where Parag or the current board or anybody is really going to make that much of a dent in terms of profitability.
Yeah.
If Elon comes in, there's no guarantee that he will, but it's just a higher likelihood that he might change something enough to bring more attention to it, and it might reinvigorate some of the hype around Twitter. So for the company, I think it's good news. For free speech, I definitely think it's good news. So I'm all for it.
Chris, what do you think?
Bring back Trump. I'm looking to be entertained, bro. I want to hear Trump's opinion about so many things because it gives us such a good counterpoint on certain things. Like, I have my beliefs. I want people to challenge them. I want people to expand a little bit on it. And I think one of the things I've realized is Trump did that, even though it was in a very comedic way and sometimes a very divisive way. Now, if I can't stand behind my own opinions because of some guy is making, waves on Twitter, then my opinions are probably not that valid. So I would say I want Trump back because I want to be entertained. I want to wake up in the morning and be like,
oh God, yeah.
The Prime Minister of the Netherlands is a biatch or something. I don't know.
He's going to fight Jake Paul now.
Yeah, exactly. I would have, that would have been amazing to see him fight Jake Paul, That
would have been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I could not agree more that I don't understand why people can't just block or mute people they don't like in the first place. And that would do more to silence them than they would ever even know. In fact, the spite alone of blocking someone who thinks you're listening would make me feel better than anyone. But I think the bottom line is, for me, what I'm most interested to see is what is going to happen with this massive amount of data about real-time thought process and shared emotions and economic data and everything else that's going on. And as a data person who works in that world, I'm super excited to see what can happen with that. And as far as anything else goes, what are you going to do? So anyways, guys, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate everyone who stayed and listened for the whole time. This was a long one. I meant it to be like 15 minutes, but it was such a good conversation. So thanks guys so much for joining. I'll see you later, and thanks for watching. And Chris and Shabari's channels will be down below as well as in Amit's also. Guys, have a good one. We'll see you later. And apparently I'm a Elon fanboy, so that's cool too.